So DBCrypto, welcome to the Crypto Princess channel. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, Crypto Princess.
Today we'll be discussing your crypto journey so far. But if I was to meet you in high school, what kind of person were you?
Ooh, good question. Wow, you didn't prepare me for any of these. So let's see. I was always very overweight, super heavy. I was the nerd, the musician. I actually graduated with a music degree. Most people don't know that, but the also the guy who got along with everyone. I was part of every single clique in school, pretty much. So,
Oh, so
just
cute.
the social butterfly and also the just the chameleon.
What instruments do you play then?
I used to play French horn and piano. Not anymore. I haven't in 20 years.
Oh, okay, awesome, awesome. That's nice. I actually
Yeah, I
quite
just
like
dated
classical.
myself there.
I actually quite like classical music. I like the piano. Um, okay, so from my understanding, so you went to university, you did music. What did you do after that?
Yeah, so I actually had a double major in music and computer science. And after that, I started working for gyms because I was really overweight. I weighed 356 pounds, and in the process of two and a half years, I lost 150 pounds, and I started
Wow.
working for the local gym. Just fell in love with it, and I worked with a couple personal trainers over the that time period, and had a great experience and saw what they did for me, and wanted to kind of do the same for others. So worked for a couple box gyms, big gyms like Bally's and Golds for 6 years, and then I opened up my own 15 years ago, and then just continued to expand from there.
Awesome, awesome. Okay, so from my understanding, you got into crypto in around about 2019, which was very early. So we had 2017, which was the second Bitcoin bull run. 2018 was a bear market. 2019 was a recovery year. Um, First of all, how did you discover crypto?
A couple friends who had mentioned it that had just been checking it out who knew me really well and figured it'd be something that I'd be interested in as well, due to the computer science background as well as the financial uh, interests and of course the monetary aspect too back then. 2019 wasn't such a great year for that, but flipped the corner into 2020 and 21, and it became a little different story back then.
Mhm. Okay, so 2020, you were also, so you discovered, obviously you discovered Bitcoin, but you'd also delved into altcoins. What sort of altcoins were you checking out?
Oh, let's see. I think one of the first, and this will show kind of the typical crypto investor journey and the not ignorance but lack of understanding. One of the first that sorry, one of the first I dove into was Cardano ADA.
Hmm.
And the main reason why, I'll be completely transparent, is because the price it was at. I think it was at maybe 2 cents at the time. And just like a lot of noob investors that maybe not know what they're doing, I'm like, well, hell, if this can do what Bitcoin is doing and
Hmm.
go to 12,000 or 15,000, that's a great investment. Of course, looking back a little bit later, realizing how market caps work and supply, I learned a lot from that. I still hold it, so it's obviously still a decent investment, but that was one of the first I looked into. And BNB, Binance Chain, that was probably one of the, that was really big back in 2020, 21. And Dash, Link, some of the basics from back there. Never was really into, let's see, XRP or Link, or not Link, Litecoin. Just never really saw the need for them, honestly. I thought it was more speculative. Well, it's all kind of speculative in a way, but especially some of the other ones that come and go every cycle.
So the hot narratives were things like layer ones last year, last bull cycle, um, metaverse, gaming. Did you get into metaverse or gaming at all?
I did a little bit and got burned, probably like a lot of people. I got in early on a metaverse that is still building and I still like. It's called Network. And I bought land for it back in the day. I don't know if the sale was in 2020 or 2021, but bought a decent amount of land. Thankfully, I did flip some of it right away and almost recovered my investment, but it's basically, since the rest of it's down about 90% at this point, if not more. So yeah, metaverse was obviously a hot topic, and I still believe it will be, and it still has a lot of potential. We were just way too early at that point. And we've got a lot of growing in the security and tech and everything before we really can get to a working or reliable metaverse, I guess I should say, if we're talking about a real virtual world.
Let's dive into, so 2020 was the halving year, so we got 2021, the bull run year. And we've got a lot to talk about the bull run year because you were quite active in this year. So for those people who don't know, Bitcoin started off the year around about 30,000 US dollars. It made its first high in April 2021, where it hit a local high of 64,000 US dollars. Actually, the Pi cycle top hit in April as well. We had the China FUD, and that saw Bitcoin fall 50%, and it ranged at 30,000 for a good few months. Bitcoins were taken off the exchanges. The supply shock led to the actual all-time high in November 2021, where it hit 69,000 US dollars. Then we had the SEC come in, issuing Wells notices to cryptocurrency exchanges and projects, and we had economical concerns, and naturally it was the end of the 4-year cycle as well, so we slid into a bear market. Now, you were very active in 2021, not just as an investor, but you did quite a lot behind the scenes with blockchain technology. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so, where to begin? With hopefully not being too boring, but it is. A lot of the behind the scenes stuff is kind of boring.
I love it, actually. I do. I got into crypto for the money, but I absolutely love the technology behind it. I've become such a nerd. I've never been a nerd before.
Well, it's fascinating too because there's so much going on and there's different ways of doing things and they're constantly progressing, different protocols, new stuff's coming out. And I think probably what got me into the tech even more was seeing the sacrifices that protocols were making and really diving into that when you see. I'm a huge critic of layer twos and a lot of the direction Ethereum has taken. I think anyone who follows me knows that, because that's probably about a third of my content. Also the manipulation and the fake metrics and the stuff that's going on that wouldn't be going on if it was a regulated or legitimate industry. So I've typically been a very big critic of Solana. I have a lot of videos on that showing how they're just the fake it till you make it chain. And
They are. They are.
everything about it is just fake. And even to this day, I did a transaction the other day. I minted an NFT just because some a group that I like is involved in it. Otherwise, I don't participate in Solana at all. But I minted the NFT, and within seconds, I had, I think, a dozen or more transactions hit my wallet for 0.00001 Solana. It's the the spoofing or whatever, where they hope you copy the address and send money to it on accident. So if you look at their numbers, like their TPS, their transactions, it's all multiplied by a 10 to 20x from crap like that. So it's stuff like that that kind of drove me nuts and had me really dive into the tech behind it, see why it's going on, see how it can be fixed, and see which protocols are really kind of following the ethos of crypto, what it's set out to do.
So for people who are not aware, Solana is a layer one, is an actual blockchain, but layer twos are actually built on blockchains. And what they do is they kind of process some of the transaction of the blockchain just to speed things up and make it more cheaper, etc. What issue did you find with layer twos?
So for starters, the centralization trade-offs that they make, and I think to this day, still every single one of them is entirely centralized to the point where, except for one or two, but it's not used at all. They can take the funds at any given time because of a multi-sig or a bridge that is controlled by a small group or some aspect, and it's a trade-off that I see Ethereum making that was kind of, I like to say it's the shortcut and the lazy road that they took, because the original Ethereum roadmap 2.0 that came out I think in 17 or 18, one of the core components of it was to be fully sharded, and in 2019 I believe they ditched that. Maybe it was early 2020. They ditched it for complexities, that they had issues figuring it out and implementing it. And then you have all these other chains launching. Solana came out, hit the scene running, started taking away some mind share and to market share from Ethereum. And at this point is when I think Ethereum really kind of shifted. And they said, if we want to stay relevant at this point, we need to push what people want, which is TPS and cheap fees. So they went the layer 2 route, which was the duct tape method, the shortcut, just to kind of stay relevant. But there are so many trade-offs with these layer 2s that people don't realize. It's a shame that it went that direction.
Yeah. So in 2021, how did you learn about blockchain technology?
Slowly, because there's so much to learn, and I'm still learning every single day. But basically, just I've always wanted to know how things work. So if I started off on an exchange like Coinbase and I sent something to Binance, or if Binance Smart Chain, if I had to set up a MetaMask wallet, and back then the tech was so horrible that you had to configure the RPC and the token and the chain ID and all that stuff, and it was just a giant mess. Stuff that is part of the reason why we still don't have great adoption today. So I always wanted to learn what it meant, not just how to do it and what was going on behind the scenes. So I just started diving into what's an RPC, or once I hit submit on this transaction, why does it take 12 rounds to confirm or go through, or what is actually happening with it, or what is this wallet? Does it actually hold my tokens? Does it just have access to the keys? What's going on? So I've always been interested in the how of things.
Awesome. I actually love blockchain technology. I'm at the very, very beginner stage. I really am, but I absolutely love blockchain technology. For those people who are not aware, Web3 will be built on blockchain technology. So this technology is not going anywhere. So again, in 2021, you were into altcoins, and then you were trying to figure out about blockchain technology and all the rest of it. You started to make videos on some of the concerns that you had. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so I've done a lot of educational videos. I think some of the videos that first took off for me were my videos around Solana, because I was actually a very early user of Solana. I was using Radium and Step protocols way back in, I don't know if that was in 2020 or 2021. So I was a very active user on the chain. And I started noticing things that just that seemed a little off. For one, transactions failing a lot, which they still happen. People say they don't, but they do. And the manipulated metrics, back in 2020, they lied about the token supply, which was a huge red flag for me. There was a TVL issue with one of their protocols that was faking their TVL. So I started seeing a lot of these things come out that really just didn't sit right with me
Hmm.
because of lack of transparency and just manipulation, the whole fake it till you make it
Hmm.
side of things. And also diving into the tech behind it, I saw some serious limitations that I just wasn't really happy with. Plus the explorers and trying to figure out what's actually going on behind the chain is an absolute nightmare. It still is to this day because of everything, all the different types of transactions and the spam transactions. Trying to use our explorers is a nightmare. So that was one of the things that kind of turned me off, and I started creating videos on it. And for over a year, I collected a lot of data points, 30 to 40 different data points showing provably false and manipulated metrics, even starting with them lying about their token supply. And I had a Discord screenshots, Twitter screenshots of Tolly, the founder, lying about their token supply. And same thing with TVL, all the stuff that just didn't really sit right with me. So I wanted to kind of expose it, I guess you could say.
Hmm. So for those people who are unaware, TVL means total value locked. Token like amounts, etc. They can dilute the value once they get unlocked and all the rest of it. And I do know with Solana, even if a transaction doesn't go through, is actually counted as it does go through, which is a bit strange. I actually do think that that's probably not the right thing to do. But why bother? Like, who cares? At the time, Solana last bull cycle did really, really well. So if people who are investing and trading, their bags were pumping, why would anyone care what happens with the tech, if that makes sense?
Most don't, and that's just kind of the way of things. A lot of people are here solely for money,
Mm.
which I get. And if number goes up, it doesn't matter what kind of shady stuff might be going on behind the scenes. But I came here for a different reason, and obviously the money plays a part in it. But seeing the future potential of the tech and what it could do is it had me go in a direction that I wanted to make sure that people were educated about chains that I truly believe have a future and aren't just out to make a quick buck and get all the hype. And everything that I saw from Solana at that point was just focused around what do people care about right now? Let's figure out how we can inflate those numbers so they think we're better than we are. And
Hmm.
it worked
Hmm.
because I look at what happened to Solana. It blew up. I think it at one point it became number 3 or 4 in the top market cap list, and it was also heavily inflated and manipulated by Sam Bankman-Fried, which we don't need to get into that, and FTX. But transparency, I've just always been big on that, and I don't see a solid path for them as a top 10 chain, which is part of the reason why I was so interested in kind of covering this stuff.
So with Solana, its consensus mechanism is proof of stake, which Cardano has as well, but it also has proof of history. That's quite new. That's very, very new. How did you learn about that?
Just by diving into basically how they operate and how the chain works. And yeah, it's completely unique to them. And it is an interesting concept for sure. It's I don't want to say confusing, but it's definitely highly technical, and Solana is the only chain that does it. But I think it could also be used in ways to solve problems that they have that they're unwilling to solve, in my opinion. For example, MEV, proof of history. It timestamps transactions, and they have this MEV problem, which is rampant all over the space for the most part. And I've talked to Tolly about this too. I don't see why they can't use this mechanism that they built into the chain to solve MEV. And I've only been able to come to the conclusion that they don't because they don't want to. Because MEV is such a massive part of the revenue that if they were to completely eliminate it, the chain could be suffering. And it would also cut out 70% of their transactions because you wouldn't have the bots constantly trying to MEV people.
Okay, let's stay with Solana. I mean, we're not hating on Solana at all. We're just using it as an example. Okay, so how was when you discovered all of these things in 2021, the bull run, Solana's doing really well, it's pumping people's bags, etc., and you come out with all of these concerns. How did people respond to that?
It was definitely a mixed bag of responses. Obviously, the Solana community was very against it, and I am blocked by Mert and Marty. So that happened probably a few years ago. But there was much more support actually from the rest of the space that either wasn't aware of this and understood it when they finally learned about it, or already kind of knew about it and were happy to see people talking about it, because it's definitely, it's been going on, a lot of the stuff, it hasn't stopped. And some of the brightest minds in the space are, they think the same, they're just a little unwilling to say it out loud. And a lot of them have been backing me since, which is nice.
So what were the attacks? Were they more personal attacks, or were they more attacks on your work?
Both, but yeah, a little of both, and I definitely a lot of heated debates and discussions, which is fine. I love doing that kind of stuff as long as it stays civil. But then, of course, there's the other side of it, the attacks, and that's crypto tribal nature of people, and you get the short one word or one emoji clown comments all the time, stuff like that. So that I definitely got a lot of from the Solana community, but also to be expected. I was exposing a lot of stuff going on that they didn't want to be exposed, even though it didn't really matter too much for price action. Their bag still did pretty well.
And is this mainly because you believe in the spirit, if that makes sense, the value behind cryptocurrency, that it should be, or blockchain technology, it should be decentralized, it should be fair, and all the rest of it?
100%. Yeah, I think I'm a big believer in the trilemma, which is scalability, security, and decentralization. And I don't see Solana having strong points in any of the three. Their scalability is all dependent on hardware. They have to have high-end hardware, which is not very... it doesn't work out for the main population. And most nodes are hosted in high-end data centers because of the requirements. Their security, they use a token model that I'm not super thrilled with, that leads to a lot of drains and attacks. And their decentralization, well, that kind of ties into the scalability a little bit. They're 70% of the nodes, roughly, as of last check, are subsidized by the foundation. And in order to run a node, I forget in order to run a profitable node right now, I think it's like $30 million or something like that. And just the cost of the hardware, the fact that they're not really, you can't run it off of your home laptop or home computer for the most part. And I've always been a big believer in you want as many people participating in the network as possible.
So for people who don't actually know what a node's just a computer that keeps the ledger, if that makes sense. And with the Bitcoin node, because they kept the block sizes small to 1 MB, average Joe can run a node if they have the storage and they're connected to the internet quite a lot. Okay, awesome. And again, actually, to be fair, I do like Solana. I do use Solana, so we're not hating upon Solana. It's just an example. Can I ask what other chains did in 2021?
What other chains that I got into, or that I was critical of?
That you investigated.
Ethereum and Solana were two of the biggest ones. and possibly because of course, the mind share that they had too. So
Mm.
they were just the ones that people gravitate towards. Also, XRP a little bit, and dove into their centralized aspect, which is still heavily debated today. And other than that, probably just, I don't want to say calling out, but helping to bring light to a lot of the shady stuff going on in the industry, such as the constant meme coin rug pulls and the
Oh my gosh, yes.
yeah the cabals of people, the small groups of people that would launch thousands of
Hmm.
meme coins and just make unbelievable amounts of money and just drain the entire ecosystem, unfortunately.
Let's touch upon Ethereum, simply because I quite like Ethereum. Again, not hating upon any chain, like we respect everyone's, tribalism. So Ethereum, I think the white paper came out in 2013, 2014. They did the ICO. 2015, I think it was launched. It was launched as a proof of works chain, and then it changed a couple of years ago. From the miners, it went to proof of stake, and since it's gone to proof of stake, the price action has been dismal. Ethereum does make itself out to be the world's computer, and it is the largest altcoin. Now, when you found out, or when you discovered issues with Ethereum, what did you do? Did you approach the foundation? Did you just make YouTube videos on it, or how did you go about it?
Probably before I started creating videos, I just talked to community members or put out general content, Twitter content, responding to various topics, ideas, proposals. I was a big critic of them completely ditching sharding and going the L2 route. And I was a huge proponent at that time of them doing either enshrined or
Mm-hmm.
based rollups, which would kind of be similar in a way to sharding. It would solve a lot of the security issues and the just things that the sacrifices that they make with the L2s. But those would have taken many more years to pull off. And now it seems like the focus is shifting that way a little bit right now. I think they're realizing that the kind of the current roll up L2 roadmap has some major flaws. So they've been pushing the based and the enshrined roll ups a little bit more. And hopefully we'll start seeing those in the next couple years. But I'm almost of the opinion that it's too little too late, because they strayed so far and they have so much competition at this point. And I know
Oh
a lot
yeah.
of people love to say that there's been hundreds and thousands of Ethereum killers, which there have been. But back in 2017 and back in 2020, the so-called Ethereum killers weren't even really functional. Like Cardano, for example, didn't even have smart contracts until 2 or 3 years ago. So while people might have called it
Mm-hmm.
Ethereum killer 6 years ago, it certainly wasn't until recently, if it is. I'm
Recently.
not saying it is.
Mm-hmm.
But now there's actually legitimate competition. There's potential for there to be an Ethereum killer. Back then there wasn't. So it's the whole argument that so many have come and gone just doesn't sit well with me, because it's a little different landscape than it was before.
Okay, so if this was you in 2021, in a bull run, when everybody's bags are pumping, you're sounding, the sirens. Actually, there are issues with these projects, these chains, etc. What happened in 2022? Now, for those people who are unaware, 2022 was a bear market, and you could even say fundamentally strong projects will go to zero, or could go to zero seamlessly overnight for what seems like no reason. And then we had a lot of things that happened in 2022. We had, and I'm not saying these were good projects at all, but we had Celsius, we had Voyager, we had 3 Hours Capital, we had Luna, we had FTX, we had many black swan events. So What
So
happened in
many.
2022? Was it like I told you moment for you, or
It to an extent it was, and it has been since, because it's kind of funny watching, especially the Ethereum community, continue to kind of preach just a year or two later what I've been preaching for so long. And but it also it gets overlooked, which is, I'm not here for attention. So probably because, and I saying it gets overlooked because of the fact that I had such controversial opinions that I know a lot of people have blocked me and just tuned me out. A lot of Ethereum maxis have blocked me in the past. Just understandable. It's such a, not understandable, but I get it. It's such a tribal space. Then money is involved for so many people, and if you are saying something that could potentially hurt their bags, I kind of get it. But those that are always open to a debate and an actual conversation, I love doing that kind of stuff. It's those that just shut everything down right away, that say no, you're wrong, and then mute you or block you. That doesn't do anyone any good. But I've seen plenty of that.
so in 2022, you were obviously making more and more videos. Tell me about the content that you were making in 2022 in the bear market.
So a lot of it back. Sorry, I think I accidentally hit mute. So a lot of it back then was educational at that point, I think. Talking about asset security, wallets, different mechanisms, consensus mechanisms, sharding. I actually recently, last year, started creating a completely educational, going back to the basics, like what is blockchain? What is a transaction? What is a wallet? How does it work? Stuff like that. So a lot of my content revolves around education for those that are interested, which is definitely a much smaller niche. There's no doubt about that. If I were to go do a video about how Bonk is going to 100x next
Oh yeah,
week,
yeah.
it's going to get 10 times more views than my video on uh, anything else, basically. But I have a kind of an educational background too, so I enjoy doing stuff like that. So that's what a lot of the content was, and a lot of it was semi-critical educational content because I was pointing out a lot of the flaws and the bugs and the issues going on in the space.
So was there any projects that went to zero in 2022 that you had called before?
Other than meme coins, not that I could think of. There's plenty that are just down a ton, for sure. Well, most of the spaces, but that have completely gone to zero or rugged. Not really. I was semi-critical about Luna, but I never really fully dove into it. I was always against algorithmic stablecoins because I saw a big issue there. But I wasn't one of the ones that was super vocal and saying everyone run for the hills, it's gonna collapse type thing. So, but that was one of them. Other than that, not really.
So by 2022, you were quite well known in the industry for doing this sort of stuff. Were you ever approached to investigate chains or anything like that?
On a couple occasions, yes, but just from individuals, not from foundations or companies or anything like that. Mainly just on a individual basis. I will say I definitely started getting flooded with people coming forward with information, which helped with further content. People would DM me and say, "Hey, saw your video on this. It was awesome. I also noticed this," and they send me stuff that they collected or they found out, and that helped open up some more content and save some of the research for myself. Even though I still dove into it to see, it's a lot easier to look into something when you know what you're looking for than it is if you don't.
And what about your own personal journey in 2022? So we hit the bear market bottom in November 2022 when we hit around about 15,000 US dollars. What were you doing in the at the time? Were you buying some Bitcoin or altcoins?
Yep. Yeah. So I've had a long-term conviction in the space for as long as I've been in it. And I kind of pertain that to, or give credit to the technical knowledge of it. If you understand what it is, then you understand that it's inevitable. And I truly believe that because of how it functions, what it solves, and where it's going, and the issues that we currently face in the other systems. It's inevitable that it's gonna take over. It's gonna run. It's gonna be the new internet. So yeah, I've been buying at all levels and bought some Bitcoin between 15 to 30. So that was nice. Didn't grab any Ethereum or Solana at those rates or those low prices. That's because I've been a big critic of them. But picked up a lot of other L1s that I've been fans of. I grabbed some more, a lot of Multiverse X at that point, the first fully sharded blockchain, which I truly believe is the most advanced blockchain in the entire space. Algorand, Cardano, and some of the blockchains that are really building for sustainability and for not just tomorrow, but for 10 years from now, 20 years from now. The blockchains that I think that have a long-term outlook and a lot of success ahead of them.
Like Cardano?
Potentially, I'm starting to lose a little faith in Cardano, but I still like a lot of what's going on. But one of my biggest critiques of Cardano is also one of the things that I like about it the most, which is crazy. So they're arguably one of the most decentralized blockchains because they have this liquid staking and they have full governance. There's really no leader. Charles and Emergo, IOHK, they burned the keys, I think maybe 6 months ago, maybe it's even longer ago. So there's no admin keys at this point. So it is very decentralized. But that also brings up one of my biggest critiques is I think they may have done it too soon. And we're seeing that now in the community with how split the community is on a lot of directions. And it almost seems like it's leading to inactivity and lack of growth and lack of direction. And I've always been a huge believer in decentralization, but I think decentralizing and giving up control too early before you fully roll out your idea is an issue. There has to be the team that built the chain or came up with the idea has to almost fully realize it to a certain point where it works before handing it over. And I don't think Cardano was there quite yet when that happened.
Okay, so that was 2022. Let's go into 2023. 2023 was a recovery year. Anything special happen in 2023 before we hit upon last year?
Not really. It was kind of a boring year, mostly real life stuff and closing down a couple businesses, moving for my family and stuff like that. But no, just continuing to dive into the research, the tech, and continuing to learn. That's always been something I've been passionate about.
Okay, let's look at 2024 now, last year. So it was a good year for Bitcoin. I think the low was something like 38,000 US dollars. We made an all-time high before the halving. The actual all-time high was 108,000 US dollars. We passed the 100K mark, psychological level. We had an alt season in Q1. We had a little alt season in Q4. The president of the United States, Donald Trump, won, and he'd run on crypto, so that added a lot of legitimacy to the space. We had the ETFs were approved. We had Germany selling 50,000 Bitcoin. And yeah, we had a very extensive meme season. What was last year like for you?
Yeah, last year was a roller coaster for sure, due to a lot of the things that you said. And we see all these massive events that people have been hoping and dreaming for a decade or more. And sometimes it's funny because a lot of it didn't really move the price nearly as much as people would have expected, especially we've got a pro crypto president and a ETF and a lot of the stuff that. But then again, it was also countered by a lot of black swans still last year as well. So there were ups and downs, constant things going on, and it was a roller coaster of a year, that's for sure.
How was the channel last year?
The channel,
Hmm.
it it grew a little bit, but you could tell that it's still not the retail's not here. A lot of the interest is here. It's still much slower than it was in 2020, 21. And it's even to this day, it's not anywhere close to where it was back then. So definitely slower. It's more of a grind, but it is what it is. I also I make a lot of evergreen content, the educational stuff that hopefully will be useful for people even in 10 years if they want to watch it.
So we had an extended meme season. It felt like the meme season never ended. It just went on and on and on. Quite remarkable considering we didn't really have too much of an alt season, if that makes sense. Um, were you investigating some of these memes last year?
Not heavily. I looked into a couple of them, more the protocols that were launching them, as well as the protocols that were supporting them. And I think in one of my videos, I pointed out at least one or two protocols that are designed to help you inflate and pump your meme coin in an artificial way and to show metrics. And they don't even hide it, which is the funny part. I think the bio of the one project even says something like, we'll boost your numbers, we'll increase your users and your holders and this and that. And not through marketing means, but because what they do is they generate thousands of wallets and they buy tiny amounts, they trade a lot, they put in a little bit of capital, and they make it look like there's a lot of activity going on. So they make it look like it's a legit meme coin for the founders to then get out and exit at higher prices. And it's a paid service. So I dove into those a little bit more because those drove me nuts. And it should be illegal in a way almost. Is you're manipulating the market and people are paying you to do this.
Okay, so when you say it's a paid service, are you saying that there's companies that would advertise this and do this for you?
100%. Yeah, I've got in my video, and I even, I don't know if the profile's still around, so I made sure to screenshot the profile and run through some of their tweets. I showed some of them in a video, and then also dove into the back end of how they did it. And you could see that they pump tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of transactions through various wallets that they created, and their whole goal was to make a token look more alive than it was. So people were drawn to it because a lot of the tools like DeFi Llama or some of the meme coin sites, so Dex Screener, stuff like that, they've got the ranking system of the most just the most looked at meme coins, and they use numbers such as transactions, volume, sales, obviously. Market cap, price up and down. So these companies were designed to make the numbers so they would hit the top of those charts, even if they weren't legit. They would just be for a short period of time so the founders can capitalize on it and get out.
So you're out there helping people or trying to help people, you're trying to raise awareness, but you get a lot of backlash. How does that feel?
It is what it is. And it doesn't bother me because I understand how this space operates. I understand the tribalistic nature of it. And more importantly, I haven't shifted from my values. I came here for a reason, and I still see the purpose of Web3 crypto, where it's going. And I haven't sold out like a lot of other people, so I can sleep well at night.
Okay, so Trump running on crypto added a lot of legitimacy, as did obviously the ETFs. And then Trump had his own coin, the Trump coin, and he released it on Solana. How did you feel about that?
I did a video on that. I don't know if it was the day or two. I don't know how long it took me to get it. It might have been a couple days after the launch. But yeah, I did a video on it, and I showed some of the wallets, the tokenomics, the manipulation going on behind it, and the craziness. And it was proven later to be a scam. I think CoffeeZilla did one of the best videos on it, where he interviewed the one of the founders. I forget the kid's name, but he was part of the group that launched the Trump coin, as well as the Melania coin and the Javier Milei coin. Mm-hmm. And it is what it is. It just a lot of people got wrecked. A lot of early people made a lot of money, but it's an insider's game too, and it always has been when it comes to meme coins, because the overwhelming majority of meme coins are launched by a small group of individuals and kind of their peers. So you launch a meme coin, you tell your 10 best friends about it or whatever, and you all get 50% of the supply early on. You hype it up, you raise the price to a certain amount, and once it gets to a certain amount, it gets attention, then it 10x's from there, and you all cash out. Rinse and repeat. And Zach XBT, who's a huge researcher in the space, he's done content on it showing that what was it? I think there was one group of individuals that created over 1,000 super profitable meme coins on Solana that they just rinsed and repeat over and over and over again. And he was able to tie their wallets together.
So with Solana, I mean, meme coins on Solana. Again, we're not hating on Solana at all. I do use Solana myself, but with meme coins on Solana, what it did for Solana was it added a lot of, like, it gave Solana a lot of attention. It put Solana at the forefront. People were using the Solana chain. They were getting, opening up wallets and all the rest of it. But what it did do was it kind of gave it a novelty feel as well. Now with Solana at this moment in time, the all-time high was at the top of I think it was where the Trump coin. And then obviously since then, the price action hasn't been great for Solana. But don't you think it's a bit of a double-edged sword for Solana?
Yes and no. And they did kind of build out a niche and almost a name. A lot of people know Solana as the meme chain, which it certainly seems like it has hurt them the past 6 to 12 months, especially since there's been all this talk of Pump Fund, their own chain, and Bonk, and all the stuff that could take revenue away from the core chain Solana. So yes, but in the end, it still provides the same experience I think that a lot of people wanted previously, which is speed and cheap fees for the most part. And I'll give that to Solana, that they have that on lockdown. It's got a great user experience because it is cheap and it's fast. I have concerns with the token model and the security involved with it, which plays into the UX user experience a little bit. But other than that, it provides everything that typical degens and just retail want.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I'll actually link some of your Solana content down below so people can have a look at it. I do think the chain does have issues behind the scenes, but I'm kind of like one of those, I'm holding it because I think the token's going to do really, really well. Sorry, the coin's going to do really, really well. Okay, let's talk about this year. So we're up to 2025 now. We've had quite a good year for Bitcoin. We've recently made new all-time highs. Retail is still not in the market. When they do come in, obviously your channel is going to be there. They're probably just going to ignore all the red flags. Why do you think people ignore the red flags?
Initially, because again, I'd say all that the majority care about is money, the price. So if their bags are pumping, they don't really care how shady it is or how centralized it may be or what's going on. I do see that changing at some point, and I think institutions are going to care a lot more. So once they start really coming in and needing to trust these ecosystems and the chains, they're going to dive into it a little bit more and realize that maybe chain A or chain B isn't suitable or ideal for what they're looking to do. So at some point, I do see that changing. With retail, maybe not anytime soon, at least not until the volatility slows down. And until there's no longer this mindset of I can make a quick 10x in the space, that's not going to change, because a lot of people do come in for the monetary aspect and they don't really care, it seems, what's going on in order to help them pump their bags.
Mm-hmm. So what does your family think about all of this? Because although you are doing, say, for example, the God's work in the space, if that makes sense, um, you're getting a lot of hate, and it must be quite stressful on you. So what does your family think about the type of channel that you've opened? Because you could have opened a channel where you're shilling projects and making lots and lots of money.
Yeah, that's definitely the double-edged sword of it. And I say the direction that I took has cost me a lot over the years, for sure, because it's so much easier to grow social channels if you give people what they want on the surface level. And I think I did a post on Twitter too a year or so ago, how to grow to 100,000 Twitter subscribers super fast. And it really is easy. If you want to follow the method, you jump into a new ecosystem, you buy one of their top NFTs, you start hyping it up, you start typing up their top meme coins. Pretty soon the entire ecosystem's following you. Rinse and repeat. You go to a different ecosystem. And within 6 months, you could probably get 100,000 followers doing that. If you really don't care about who your followers are or the quality, or if you're just out to make a buck. But I've never been that type, the one that's gonna kind of sell out and take the offers for videos or content for stuff that I don't believe in. I've never once done any piece of content on something that I don't own or believe in, and never once dumped anything or anything after, if I might have been giving tokens. Mm-hmm. And I've turned down probably 100 times more offers than I've accepted. So it's definitely a double-edged sword, but the family is fully supportive, and my wife always has been. And we still have the gym business, so that kind of supports us for the most part. And she has a baking business too on the side, so she's busy with that, and we have 2 kids, so that keeps us busy.
Oh. Okay, so what's next for you then? So we're in 2025 now. Last year was a halving year, so technically this is we're going to have a parabolic bull run this year, which I still follow the 4 years. Fingers crossed. I still think that, I still follow the 4-year cycle. So what's next for you this year in 2025?
That's another great question. And because of so many ups and downs, I've gone back and forth between saying once it gets to a certain level, I'm out, because it's stressful, obviously, the space, and also seeing so much of the things that are going on and completely ignored is more stressful, and seeing how manipulated the entire space is monetary, money-wise, especially as all the more the institutions come in, because they want control. They don't, if you really think about it, the governments and institutions, they don't want a fully decentralized financial system and for this to succeed. Of course not, because that takes away all their power. Money is power. And if you control people's money, you have all the power in the world over them. So, sorry, a little tinfoil hat-ish maybe, but I see the road ahead is still long, and it's still going to be a big fight. And that's kind of one of the things that disappoints me the most, is because I see so many people giving in to the control and the willing to sell out in a way for the quick gains and the centralized stable coins and stuff that just really don't go with the original ideas and values of Bitcoin and Web3. And 85% of the stablecoins in the space are 100% centralized and can be taken from your wallet, burned, frozen at any given time. A lot of people don't know that. The rest that do just don't seem to care. And that boggles me. And if you're here for the reasons that Satoshi came here for, then you think that's absolutely ridiculous. You should, I think.
So that was absolutely amazing. Thank you so much for what you're doing in the space. We really do need a lot more people like you. How many people are there actually like you? Just before we end it, how many people are there like you in the space?
Not many, I can say that. And if there are, I'd love to connect with them. I'm constantly connecting with new people that do have the values, but they're unfortunately not nearly as loud or vocal or large accounts as the others. Just it's natural. The people that show the hot topics or the meme coins grow faster. They have louder voices. So not as many as I'd like. There are a lot more than people think, though. Just there's a lot of people that are hesitant to be vocal about it, including a lot of project founders. I'm in connection with a lot of high level project founders that support me 100% and love what I do, but they're kind of torn between shooting themselves in the foot by being vocal about it, I guess.
Oh yeah, definitely. And well, something that we haven't actually spoken about is the role that these projects, the relationship that these projects have with influencers, because what they tend to do, and especially with Solana as well. Again, I'm not hating on Solana. I do own Solana. I do hold Solana as well. What they do tend to do is that they tend to pay these influencers, etc., to hype up their chains, etc. And I think XRP does it as well. But there we go. There we
Oh
go.
yeah.
I'm not hating on any project. Don't worry. We're neutral here. Or on this channel, we're neutral. Oh my God. Well, thank you so much, first of all, for everything that you do for the community, for raising these issues. I learned a lot from your channel. I'm going to link everything down below. And it was amazing for, learning about your crypto journey. So thank you for coming on and sharing it with us.
Thanks for having me on. No, it was a great chat, and definitely would love to do it again and